All right, we are good to go and we are golden. All right. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everybody coming in. Welcome to another Wiser webinar. We are going to have some fun today and have a conversation about what to do about nothing. In other words, if you don't has any money or you only has a little bit and the piggy bank is almost empty and you're shaking out like the odd halfpenny bit and everything else, what do we do? How do we deal with the industry? What can we do to protect ourselves a little bit more effectively? And with Evan's showing the wallet already. Yeah, I think you might have more than I have in mind at the moment. So we're actually this is going to be a bit of fun today because for those of you that know and are aware, we run a shit show on Thursday evenings, and both Ryan and Evan are gracious enough to allow me to come hang out on Thursday evenings with them as well. So we've kind of like doing a daytime version of the shit show with Gabrielle about a different topic for Wiser. So go figure that one out if you can. I will let both Ryan and Evan introduce themselves because for those of you that are wondering what the hell we're on about, I'll shut up for a second and let Ryan go first. So please introduce and say hi.
Hey everybody, glad you're here today. I'm Ryan Cloutier, super secret cybersecurity squirrel. Evan's right and left hand at Security Studio. Just really passionate about this very topic, very passionate about what we can do to help people get better at this. It's why I get out of bed every day. I do some virtual CISO work. I make some different documents. The further I move up in the organization, the less technical work I'm doing and the more making of pretty graphics. But no, just excited to be here and give you guys some actionable information that you can implement right away to improve your security program without necessarily coming out of pocket.
Awesome. Evan, you're up, sir.
All right. Yeah, I'm a security guy, CEO of and founder of Security Studio and FR Secure. A couple of companies, weird, crazy mission, trying to fix this broken industry. One of those things is, we need to spend our information security dollars really, really wisely, right? They're not in it. Some of us have none, so it's really cool to be here. The interesting thing about Ryan is I don't know if you've ever done anything without any hands. So for Ryan, my left hand and my right hand, I got nothing. So I'm really excited to be here and help out wherever I can.
All right, and our glorious leader for this, Gabrielle, please feel free to say hi for a minute.
Hi guys, I'm the founder and CEO of Wiser, and I have this crazy vision that hopefully one day we will be able to browse the web safely online without getting scammed. So this is sort of my mission, and hoping we're getting, small steps there instead of backwards. So hopefully we're going the right direction.
Man, I'm probably the wrong one for this. I'm running with 3 different scams at the moment. I got a friend of mine who's got a house for rent up in Minneapolis, actually up in your guys' neck of the woods, who's being scammed because somebody else took over his house advert and they're advertising it for him. And they're taking all the deposits. I'm running that one. I got another one, then somebody's just trying to sell me a watch outside of eBay. So I'm having some fun with that one. Yeah, this shit ain't going away anytime soon. There's way too many gullible people, unfortunately, and we haven't been able to train them all. All right, that aside, let's get on to the topic. So today, we're going to have a long conversation about how do we deal with small and medium businesses, in fact, actually, arguably to any business of any shape or size. But how do we help them effectively, especially when they haven't allocated budget, don't have a budget, or haven't put anything aside? So the conversation then becomes one of what do we do and how do we do it? I kind of want to really take a step back and address the first one. And I know we've talked about this before, but address the first one, which is how do we convey to a small to medium business that they are actually a target, that they are significant, they are a target, and somebody's going to care about them? So I'm up for some thoughts on that one. Evan, I mean, you deal with this stuff day in and day out. Give me some thoughts on that if you don't mind.
Well, that's one of the biggest, I think, misconceptions in our industry is that you don't have anything that an attacker wants. Right, it leads to a false sense of security. You don't take things seriously, and then you find yourself ransomware, or you find yourself, the victim of a business email compromise, or any number of different scams that are out there. Attackers are in it for the most part, right? If you're facing a nation state, you got bigger issues. But You know, if you're facing the money motivated attackers, they're in business to make money, and they'll take it from you. So it doesn't matter if you're all big. If anything, the smaller companies are more at risk because they have less protections in place, right? They're more likely to pay ransom than, you know, Wells Fargo or a US bank where they've got, you know, a huge budget. So I think if anything, if you think you're not a target, think the opposite. You are absolutely 100% a target.
So let me flip it over to Gabrielle for a second, because it's interesting. I mean, we say that inside the industry, we say that, and it's like, okay, how the hell do we take that message and convey it effectively to an organization? You got Gabrielle, you've got that side of the hat, the comms side. Give me some thoughts on that one. That's a rough one.
So, you know, if you think you're a target of an ad, if you're going to click on an ad, if marketers care about you, scammers care about you. You know, we tend to think that scammers, cyber criminals target us specifically. Also in marketing, it doesn't work like that, right? We're seeing ads, we're part of a mail blast. So it's the same thing. If I'm a cyber criminal, I'll probably shoot out an email, a mass email, because I think like a marketer, I need to create leads. After those leads, I'm gonna, you know, have a funnel and I'm gonna convert them to opportunity. So if you're easy to click on things, if you emotionally respond to different emails or advertisements, because scammers can advertise as well, right? They can put an ad. Nothing stops them from putting an ad on Facebook. So you just never know who you're interacting with. Also a chat online when you're playing a game or a dating site. They are everywhere their marketers are, they are there, plus other places. So of course you're a target. You know, if marketers can pull money out of you for buying stuff, what stops them from buying something and not sending you anything and collecting your information? And then you do become an actual target because now they have so much information about you and it's just low-hanging fruit. So to think that somebody actually cares about you so much that you're going to go there and, you know, somebody will target you. Yeah, I get it. You know, I'm too small, but it doesn't work like that. You know, you're just part of social media. You're just part of a mailing list, and you will click because that's what we do. We click.
So if we take the logic of that, we take Evan's logic. Ryan, you're on point for apparently doing pretty graphics at this moment in time. How do we take the message, and how the heck do we tell people effectively? What do we? I mean, short of printing it out on cardstock and smacking people upside the head and going, for crying out loud, listen to us, we want to help you. What options do we have? How do we get to people?
Well, I think first it starts with we've got to have better stories. Human beings love stories. It's part of our culture. It's part of who we are. And our industry just doesn't have that great of stories. If you're in the business, yeah, it's interesting to listen to somebody go through the details of IR or security program. But if you're just an average person at home, it's not a very engaging story. You know, one of the things that Evan and I have been working on is creating a character to help us tell the story. So Evan came up with Security Sam, or Sam the security dog, right? Because we need a way to effectively tell a story so that we can get the attention of the people to then listen long enough to get the message. I think part of the problem we have today is it's a 10-second world, and we don't have a good clickbaity, because we avoid that, right? We try to not be like the scam artists. We try to not do clickbait stuff. But the reality is that's what's getting engagement. So I think that's part of it, is having good stories. I think the other part is we have to do some repair work from previous IT folk and security folk that maybe left a bad taste in the mouth of some of these people, who threatened them with kidnapping of the children and the apocalypse starting if they didn't change their password every 6 minutes. And they heard that for 10 years, 20 years. They're fatigued. You know, we talk about breach fatigue in our industry, right? We get it. Well, they've got it too. Yep, one more breach. Yep, every day I turn on the news, somebody else has lost millions of records. What could I possibly do? So I think we have to overcome that idea that there's nothing to be done. And I think we do that with stories.
So go back to the stories thing, because I mean, we talked a little bit about this a couple of weeks ago in the evening. What I don't want to do, and it's actually the next question on here about the what's the worst that can happen. I don't care. We all know what the worst that can happen is. For me, the stories are what I would love to see, and what I think would be fantastic to help would be some of the success stories. Hey, look, if you invest 5 minutes, if you take 10 minutes out of your time and you take 15 minutes out of your life this week or next week, here's how we can help you. Here's what we can do. If you listen to me for 5 minutes, here's some of the things that we can help you with. Here's how we can reduce the risk and stuff like that. Is that, when you're talking about stories, is that how you're looking at it?
Yes. We should celebrate the successes, but also we need stories to take people into the industry, right? We need stories to get them to want to care, to be committed to doing their part in their digital life. So I think it's multifold. I think there's some just general stories. Actually, I just saw a post earlier today when I had Signal for 5 minutes that showed a children's book. So they wrote a children's book around the topic of cybersecurity. It doesn't tell you how to secure yourself. It doesn't go into that depth of detail. But what it does is it exposes the topic. It exposes the industry at an age-appropriate level for these kids to get engaged, to start to think about this is actually part of life. It's a larger part of life. It's not just a computer thing.
I'm actually that's a really good thing. There's an amazing lady out there called Rosemary Wells, and I know her through a very, very, very good connection. And I'm trying to get her to get on board with doing this because she does all these amazing stories. I mean, she's written 20, 30, 40, 50 books or something like that, all kids books for mostly the younger ages. And I'm trying to get her to do something that would talk about, our industry in a way that would resonate with basically the rugrats, the small rugrats running around the place.
Well,
So
I'd like to see somebody do, I'd like to see somebody do Blue Team as the superheroes.
Yeah.
We should have a superhero character for Blue Team, and then there should be the bad guy, right? The cyber criminal, and we're protecting and defending. Let's tell that story. We do that work. So let's borrow something from Marvel and let's tell that story that way. I think it makes folks more engaged. I think even the adults that would somewhat resonate with. And then you get them to that aha moment, and then you can begin the training piece. But you have to get them from ignorance to aha. You have to get them from, as we've said before, scare to care.
Yeah. It's interesting talking about that side of it. The tabletop exercises I did the week before last, I've got my heroine all lined up for 3 or 4 days. I didn't reveal that it was a she and it was a heroine, and I'd actually borrowed one of the names from the Bridges and Tech podcast that we ended up doing as well. So I'm lining her up to be basically the valiant one that continues to defend against everything I decide I want to throw at her. All right, so here's a question then. So again, small business, we get their attention. They're like, okay, I get it, I understand it, I like this idea. What can I do? I haven't put money aside. It's middle of the year. We're middle of COVID lunacy at the moment. My budget has gone from here down to here. My revenue's gone from here to wherever I think I'm going to be. What the heck can I do by myself? Let's start with the easy one. I'm the business owner, non-technical. I'm making widgets in the factory down the road. I've got a couple of hundred people working for me. What can I do? How can I research? What do I need to do? I'm interested in that one. Evan, you want to take a stab at that one?
Sure. Yeah. Well, it's funny you mentioned, just backing up real quick too, you mentioned heroin, heroin, not the addiction drug.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then, just listening to you guys talk, I learned so much from listening to other people talk. You know how we made mobile devices and we made mobile apps so addictive? I wonder if there's a play there to make security addictive, right? Some way, but anyway, another topic.
No, I like that. It's actually kind of cool.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's something there, but building a security program is just like building a house, right? You have to start with a foundation. You have to start with the fundamentals. They don't cost a lot. That's the good thing, right? But it does take some work. So you're going to have to devote some time, some energy to, for instance, asset management. How can you possibly protect the things you don't know you have? It doesn't cost a lot of money to figure out where your assets are, your hardware assets, your data assets, your software assets. start there, understand. Now that will also lead to business efficiencies in time, not right out of the gate, but you'll end up saving money, right? There's so many synergies between information security and business. We say that complexity is the enemy of information security. Well, great. That's also the enemy of business, right? Look for process efficiencies that you can make it more secure. Start with the basics, start with the fundamentals, start with an understanding of what information security really is. It's risk management. It's not risk elimination. So I can't manage risk unless I've assessed it, unless I understand it. So start with basic fundamental risk assessment. And then from that, spend your information security dollars on your most significant risk that's unacceptable to you, right? And so
That's a
you
key
might need
one.
some
Yeah.
help. There's some free methodologies. Yeah.
Well, it's
Well,
even, I mean, it's even looking in a mirror. To me, and this is something we always ask when we do tabletops, one of the first questions I always ask, and I know you guys probably do something very, very similar, is what can I do to kill your company inside 24 hours? It's one of the very first questions that we ever ask. And it's amazing when you hear the different discussions. The CFO's got one view, the CTO's got another view, the guys or the ladies looking after manufacturing have got another view, the canteen has a different view, and everybody has a legitimate say-so in exactly what it would take to kill the company in 24 hours. And if you don't know that and you don't understand that, you can't plan for those risks. And that's a huge one. And I love doing the tabletop stuff, and they're easy to do, and it's just quick scenarios. And you're like, okay, now we all understand where we got to start, and then you kind of go from there. That's a huge part of it.
well, and I want to pick up what Evan
Yes.
said for a second about asset discovery, right? So a lot of organizations, especially the smaller ones, if they have no budget, asset discovery isn't something that a novice computer user can just sit down and do. There is some complexity to it. It's not, you can figure it out if you put in enough time, but the open source tools that are out there, there's a little bit of learning curve. So what I've been coaching people on is call your local college. These kids are desperate for experience. They need entry level experience, and they're so desperate, they'll do it for free. They need to show that they've done something to get qualified. I promise you, if you start calling your local college and say, look, I'm looking for interns, volunteers, somebody to come in and do an asset scan and a vuln scan. There are free open source tools for both of those things. That is probably the greatest benefit you can give your organization if you don't have a security program. Those two foundation blocks are so critical to making your next decision about where you would spend that dollar or where you need to think about creating a dollar to spend. And you can get it done for absolutely free, and you're helping out young aspiring cyber professionals to get a foothold in this business. Different topic for a different day, but it's really, really hard with the ridiculous job requirements to get into this industry if you've got no experience, even if you have all the papers in the world, if you haven't done it. And so it's a win for them. It's a win for you. You save money. They get experience. Call your local college. I promise there are some hungry young students that are really interested in helping you out at no charge.
See, it's interesting you go that route, because I've gone even further back to the basics. I remember years ago, we didn't have many of those tools. We could ping the network and you never knew what the heck it was. We would go around with a bloody spreadsheet. We'd go around with paper, document it, especially if there wasn't a huge office. You'd walk around playing Hunt the Computer, and you'd at least get a base understanding as to what you had. And then you could go, okay, what do I think I have versus what do I have? And then you start asking all those awkward questions. And again, that's, to your point, that's cheap, free, next to no cost. Something, I mean, we're not talking a huge amount of money. I love the college idea. That's absolutely fantastic. And again, that's one of those, if I'm not technical, who do I ask around me that is? Who could I bring in that is technical? And that's definitely, I love the reciprocity there, because it's like you're giving them the experience and they're coming in and they're helping you out. I love that. That's fantastic.
Well, you never know what that'll do for you in the future. You'll have an ally. You'll have somebody that you help get a foothold in this business who's not going to forget that.
Yeah. Gabriel, what you got some thoughts on this?
Yeah, so I think it's also a mindset. I think a lot of people are fooling themselves to think that someone else doesn't have value in what they have. So it really starts with understanding And that's something you can do with yourself, right? Like if somebody has full access to my computers, what's the worst that can happen to me as a business? Once you ask yourself these questions, and these are questions that you do need to ask yourself, don't assume that you have nothing valuable to someone else. Like, what's the total worst? Somebody just wants to, like, I don't know, ruin my business. Then when we talk about assets, now we can start to understand what's important. Sometimes I talk with restaurant owners, and some of them convince me, well, we have printed everything out. They have folders. That's a good, that can be a great plan. Sometimes that's all you need if you're a very small business. Print everything out. So in case the worst that happens, it will take you a week, but you can recover from paper. You can scan it. It really depends on your business, but don't assume what's worth for a cyber criminal or not. Just assume somebody wants to ruin havoc on your business. Then you start to understand risk. And you can, it can be as simple as a backup. You plug it in. It's something that you can probably do. If you ask the vendor you're using, how do I pull the data out? I want to put it on a hard drive. So there are some things you can do, but it starts with understanding what's the worst that can happen to you.
It's to me, it goes beyond just anything from the adversary, the cyber criminal, the attacker coming in. To me, it's just simple. At some point in time, that computer that you've used for the last 6 years isn't going to boot up. Hard drive's had enough. It's done. It just doesn't want to start up today. The platters have decided to crash. End of story. You've lost that computer. Where's the data? When did you last touch it? When did you last back it? I mean, we talked about this again the other evening. Something as simple as a bloody tape backup would cause so many of these ransomware issues to just disappear. Oh no, I got ransomware. Well, that's a shame. Click, backup, plug in, half an hour later, hey, I'm up and running again. And maybe it gets ransomware again. Maybe it's been stored on there since last night. Well, great, I'll grab the one from last week, plug in, off I go again. My hard drive's crashed, my system's decided it's had enough. I go buy another one, I recover, I'm off and running again. I think it's, to me, it goes back to the stories. I think for me, part of it's awareness, and it isn't always, hey, it's the adversary that's going to come after you. You've got electronics, they're finicky, they're temperamental, and every now and again they just throw you for a loop and decide they're not going to work and screw you for a period of time. You can't afford for that to happen. So it isn't just, hey, the boogeyman's going to get you. It's like, hey, it's life with technology. Shit sometimes just isn't going to work.
I call it the light bulb principle, right? So a light bulb is rated to run for however many hours it's rated to run. It may run for 1 minute. It may run for all those hours. It may run for more of those hours. But one thing you are 100% sure to experience is it will burn out when you don't expect it to.
Yes. Yes.
And there's never a good time.
True. So
Right.
true. Yeah, it's like power outages. I mean, it's like California. I mean, I pity, again, so we look at it again. So much of California at the moment is having issues and problems and all the issues over there. It's got nothing to do with adversaries, nothing to do with criminals. It's the fact that half the bloody country's on fire and you either can't get to the facility, it's burnt down. So that really nice bunch of flipping microchips of yours is a pile of smoldering plastic and junk. Goodbye data unless you back, and even if it's in paper, you better hope it's in a decent fireproof safe. So
no, that's a good point about security in general, and this also works well when you talk to a board, to a bigger company. It's usually about how do we keep people out, like, 100%. It's just not realistic. And, going back to this fire example, we have smoke detectors and we have fire extinguishers because if something bad happens, we can, take it, we can deal with it fast. The detectors will let us know and we will be able to, put the fire out. So that's a huge part of security. When something happens, are we prepared to fight back as soon as possible? So it's not really about always keeping people out. And also a small business or a big business, if they plan for the worst, like I said, it can be paper, it can be a tape. If you think about the worst, you'll be just much better at planning when something does happen and reacting and responding?
Your challenge on that one, the only downside with something like that analogy is typically if it's a fire, you smell it, see it, hear it, feel it. From an adversarial attack, the chances are you're not going to see us coming. I don't smell that often. I typically shower on a semi-regular basis. You won't see me coming, and you're not and you're not going to know I was there. And I think it's a challenging one because I like the idea. But the reality is, to the other points, unfortunately, if all I'm after is your data or to create havoc, you're not going to see me coming. 99% of the time, you're going to be blindsided. And it's how prepared are you? How much testing, how much stuff you know.
Well,
Right, so,
and I'll add to that real quick. It's plan for more than one disaster at a time. A good friend of mine just wrote a continuity plan, and she had the fires in Oregon hadn't started yet. But she's like, by the way, we live in Oregon, so we're dealing with a pandemic crisis, but we could also be at the exact same time dealing with a fire crisis. And so that changes how we approach our recovery strategy for this continuity. So just keep in mind that it isn't just a single thing. Sometimes you can get hit with 2, 3 at a time, and you may need to pivot and adjust your plans accordingly.
all right. So let me throw something a little. So small business owner, done my research, figured out that I need to do something. I've done some stuff on this awareness, and I'm like, oh crap, there's all sorts of weird hooded things out there chasing me down, and there's stuff that's going to break on me, and I've got a bunch of temperamental electronics. I got to do something. Still don't have much money. Got a little bit of money. Got a little bit of cash in the piggy bank. Where do I go? I mean, how do I pick up the yellow pages and look for antivirus companies? Do I Google the stuff on the internet and trust what the internet tells me? Do I look for an MSP, MSSP? And if I do, how the hell do I evaluate those folks? How do I find my way to the right people? Give me some thoughts on that one. Evan or Ryan, give me some thoughts on that one.
Well, my big thing in our industry, we're very much in a money grab. So everybody's out to get money. So, reaching out to somebody in our industry can be sort of a dangerous thing. My advice, on a lot of these things is if you don't know someone already personally, right? Because you have to establish trust. You have to establish credibility, and they can't be jerks, right? So you need to have those 3 things in play. So if I don't already know somebody in the industry that I trust, it can be sort of intimidating. My advice is if you're looking for consulting, work with a consultant, right? Who doesn't sell stuff. They're harder to find, but there's always because if I'm a consultant, I tell you your firewall sucks, but I also happen to sell firewalls, right? You have to start questioning, is there a bias behind my advice, right? Until you establish a relationship with that person. So I like pure play. I would reach out to a consultant who does nothing but information security consulting, that doesn't sell any products. That would be a good start if you don't already know somebody. You can ask us too. I mean, we're pretty approachable guys. You, Chris, Ryan, Gabriel. I mean, we're pretty approachable. We would certainly, give you a direction to go down.
Yeah, I was going to say, hit InfoSec Twitter. Get on InfoSec Twitter and see who the people are that the others in the industry are looking to. You can always find somebody. The beautiful thing about InfoSec is that while Evan is correct, there's plenty of money grabbing going on at the business level. Generally, the majority of individuals I've interacted with are very helpful people, and they want to help point you in a good direction. So use those social media channels. Again, I'll go back to it. Call your local college. Hey, do you guys work with anybody? Do you know of anybody? And then fact check that. Don't just take one person's word for it. See, do your homework. I had an experience this week with getting some vehicle repair, and in doing my homework, I discovered, I shouldn't do business with that company. That's not going to be good for me. So there's a little bit of do your research as well. Read the reviews. See if on Google they've got 900 negative reviews and 2 positives, right? Kind of look into it. And then Evan's right. Reach out to us. we'll help guide you to somebody that can actually help you and not just empty your bank account.
Yeah, I think that's the big one. And Gabrielle, this might be something, we talk about doing like a handout, something after these.
Mm-hmm.
I literally think we need to come up with almost the questionnaire. It's like it's Angie's list. It's like the Angie's list for InfoSec. The questions to ask. I did one of these fairly recently for an AI one. I'm like, here are literally 10 questions to ask your AI vendor. And these are the answers you should expect from somebody who knows what the hell they're talking about. And these are the answers you're going to expect from somebody who's selling you snake oil. And I was pretty blunt in it deliberately. And I've handed it out to a bunch of folks after the conference and everything else. And so, to both Evan and Ryan's point, I think something needs to come up again. Give me your thoughts on this one from like an awareness and an understanding. How do we convey that message about how to ask and what to ask properly?
Yeah, so I would also add to that. I totally agree with Evan and Ryan. Another avenue is just ask Facebook. Your Facebook friends. Sort of when you go to travel and you ask for tips or restaurants. You can also ask, hey, does anybody know someone that deals with security? Maybe a friend of a friend, a kid, or somebody. It's all about like building that trust and starting to get answers. I think the first chunk of the money should be for, like Evan said, for consulting. Don't go and rush and buy products, and please don't believe, because we are also the problem. Going back to this message, when I see the VPN vendors are talking about 100% privacy, it makes me cringe. It's and people see this, and what happens next? The business buys the VPN and they're secure. That's it, they're secure. So it's tough, like in the industry itself, going back to this money grabbing, everybody is trying to sell, and it's false sense of security, I would say even reckless to some degree. So it's really important to have somebody that you trust that can really handhold you, or even, hand you out to another consultant that deals with this. And as an industry, we have to be more responsible about what we're telling people. And as the vendor, as a security vendor, a security awareness vendor, one of the things that we believe in is that even though we're, security awareness vendors usually protect companies. I usually say we don't protect companies, we protect people. It's because it's people that you should care about, not companies, because it's their behavior that will eventually cause, a breach in your company or in their personal life. So as security vendors in general, I really hope people will stop talking about with buzzwords and look at people in the eye and actually try to help them have some social responsibility, which is more than just making money. And people will respect that. I think companies that see these type of companies that are trying to help people, that's good for their brand. I would say that for us, we grew significantly because of that. Just focusing on the people. So yeah, it's something that as a whole, as an industry, we have to think about. Stop selling false sense of security. And it's everywhere. It's in reviews, it's in we're doing it to ourselves. So
the challenge
Pay to play awards.
Yeah, do not even get me on that.
But before we go there, but I wanted to touch on something Gabriel said, because it's absolutely spot on. I look for vendors that have skin in the game with me. I get that you're going to have problems. I get you're going to have outages. I get you're probably even going to have a security breach. I'm okay with all of that as long as you're in it with me, as long as you're committed to be in it with me, be transparent, let's work together. That's what I look for when I look for vendors and partners, is skin in it. And that's what I coach every one of my clients on. When it comes down to selecting vendors, we look at skin in it. As a matter of fact, we've gone with vendors that were slightly more expensive because they were committed, because the contract terms had skin in the game. There was recompense. There was, actions to be taken, not, oh, well, you bought my product, you bought my service, something bad happened, so let me offer you my other product and service for when my first product and service fails.
That's a huge one. And that, again, small to medium businesses, they don't have money to throw around. Let's be perfectly honest. Large organizations, a little bit more flexibility sometimes. But that small organization, they're writing a $2,000, $3,000, $5,000 check to you. You
Big
better
deal.
make. That's a huge deal. Yeah, it's a huge deal. And to me, it's one of those things where it's like, okay, if they're doing that, how? I mean, you've got to your point, you've got to do your due diligence. You've got to do your checks and validations. It's that verify. Then maybe I'll trust you, but I'm going to continue to do the verification all the way along this thing. The skin in the game is the big one.
And show empathy. You know, it's a lot of money for some companies, $3,000. You know, don't look at it from your perspective. Oh, it's only $3,000. This is what can I afford? Don't think about yourself. Like, if you're giving a service, then do the best you can for that $3,000 for that company and care about that company. You know, it's just, you just have to think that way. That will help you later on in your business as well.
Yeah, it's interesting because I mean, again, so now let's put the shoe on the other foot for a second. An organization that is dealing with small to medium businesses. Carol Cross asked an interesting question out here, and it was all about reasonable pricing for consulting for small business data services. And it's tough because I mean, our standard business, our standard charging model is a lot of money. And again, you know, that $3,000, that's a day of time. Well, that doesn't work for a small to medium business because that isn't that scale doesn't work. It's like, hi, you've got me for 8 hours. Have a nice day, but by now I'm gone, and you want this. Oh, by the way, thanks for my check. You just can't do that with those businesses. So you have to start looking at, okay, how do I change that? What do I need versus what do I want versus what am I going to change? And I think, you know, to Ryan's point, and this is something that I think Gabrielle, Evan, and Ryan, I think we could all sit down and go, how do we make sure that we ask those right questions? How do we make sure that we bring in the right folks? What's the right, all those kind of things. I think that's huge, like really huge.
Well, yeah, like with my clients, if they have no program at all, and this is primarily K-12 where I find this most often, I give them a starter kit. So if they do buy 8 hours of service, I know that in the first 2 hours, I'm going to give them a homework assignment that's 4 to 5 months long. So I give them the starter kit, and then I let them keep hours in the bank to pick up the phone and call. So we do that initial consult. Maybe there's a few emails back and forth because that's not draining my resource time very much, right? I can kind of get to those in the evening or whatever. It allows them to get going because matter of fact, I just talked to a client this morning that is just completing their critical asset inventory, and we are going on 1.5 years since we started it. Because they just don't have the time because they are small. And so they have 500 other priorities. So they try to find an hour a week to chip away at this, but it takes a long time. But so that's kind of how I've done it. And I'd like to see more people do that, you know, make it accessible to them.
Yeah.
Make it so it's an affordable endeavor. And maybe instead of spending the first 2 hours going, so let's get to know each other and tell me all about how maybe you put together a starter kit that can accelerate them to a go position in that first hour of 2 hours of consulting so that they're actually making progress instead of, as we all know, those first 2 hours usually get burnt on the round tables and what are we going to order for lunch? And that's my 2 cents on it.
No, I'm the same boat as you, absolutely the same boat. That's the reason the maturity model, that 2-page spreadsheet maturity model, took everything from like NIST, ISO, and all the other crazy stuff that takes weeks to do, boiled it down, and could literally sit down with the company inside of the first hour or two, fill the whole stupid thing out and go, look, this is where you are, this is where you need to be, want to be, should be. Now let's spend the next hour or two putting a plan in place. Right, go. We'll check in with you. When do we want to check in? And I've used that so many freaking times. And it's go, go, go. And then you check in and how are we doing? What are we doing? What do we need to help with? What do we need to push? What do we need to get roadblocks out of the way? Where can I help? You know, where can I point you? And that's so much simpler. And it's value. You know, they've got it. They've got something tangible that they can go, this is where we were, this is where we're heading, this is what we're doing. Here's my hit list of what we got to get done. It's not that bloody hard to do.
2 hours is a lot of time if we cut the bullshit, you know?
Yeah.
Well, and
Evan.
the key word that came out of what you said, Ryan, was progress. That's what's important, right? So many times we see people try to get from here to there overnight, right? That you're going to get all of these things done, that you're going to understand security and implement everything and protect yourself in the next month. That's not how it works, right? It takes time. You need to blend this into your business. It needs to be a way, it needs to become part of your business, not a separate thing from your business. And it takes time. Make progress. So today or this week, pick one thing. We're going to work on our asset inventory. Great. Just focus on that. Then next week,
Hmm?
well, we're going to maybe write a policy. All right. Then do that. Right. All these things will be contributed to, but they don't cost money. Right. Where you really fall down a slippery slope is when you're spending money on things that you don't understand how they work. You don't understand what risks you're actually trying to protect yourself against. And you're buying them because either somebody sold them to you or you read about it, you read a review. That's not where you need to focus your time. If you don't have money, you're not ready for that stuff anyway, right?
Right.
Because if you have money, you've probably matured your program enough to where you can justify a budget to spend that money, right? So a lot of the people that have any money don't have much of a security program potentially, probably. So start on the basics, start on the fundamentals, and just take steps, baby steps. You don't have to get there quick.
And I would
Well,
obviously
and I
add
think that,
security awareness. You know, like Wiser is free. I know there's a lot of other resources online that are free, but educate yourself. You know, sit down, watch those videos, and you will learn so much by yourself if you just educate yourself with, security awareness or YouTube or other resources that are out there.
I mean, it's the same thing as our industry. I mean, so many people are chasing expensive certs and expensive training. I'm like, go out there and look at how many and how much information is freely available. I mean, unfortunately, we lost the peer list resource, but there's still so many other resources out there where you've got free training, free awareness, free. I mean, Gabrielle, to your point, there's so much data on the site at Wiser, not just to protect the company, but the people, the assets, the kids, the grandmas, and everybody else around. It's just like, look, here, use this, learn from this. So the data's out there. The challenge, I think, still comes back to somebody actually knowing where to find it, how to find it. That to me, I still think is the biggest one. Is one, how do we get the message to everybody? And then secondly, how do they then stand up and go, who do I ask effectively?
Yeah, look, one of the things, for
That's one
example,
of the
that
things.
go ahead, Evan. Sorry.
Well, I was just saying that's one of the things that we love about working with you, Gabriel, and working with Wiser is because your mission is aligned with ours. We're the same way. We want to help people. We want to make things better. Money, yes, you need to make money to keep the lights on, but that's not the primary focus, right? So much like Wiser, we have a bunch of free solutions as well, and it just works really nice. Wiser does a lot of the training stuff. We have some risk assessment stuff. It works really nicely, and we're looking for more organizations like us, like Wiser, like Security Studio, to work together to really solve these problems.
Yeah. So, one of the things that we're starting to do, and I'm seeing success in that, is when we create our videos, we think about it not as much, not as training, but as media, meaning how do we make a video that will go viral? Once you get into that habit of asking yourself, will somebody share this video? Like, be honest with yourself. Like, is it just training to be accurate, or is it something that people will actually want to share because they want to keep their kids safe, their parents safe from romance scam or whatever? Like, create content that has the potential to go viral, and hopefully that's something. And I'm already seeing that on LinkedIn. We're posting our videos, and some of them did go viral, tens of thousands of views, for single videos. So, and it really makes me happy to see that, because it creates awareness. The fact that people are sharing it shows that people care. It's really about how do you make those videos, or how do you make that training material. Are you being accurate, or are you trying to touch emotions, tell stories, and really care about helping people. So I think as an industry, we have, including us, we're getting better at it, but social media is a great opportunity for us to tell our stories if we, think about the audience beyond the security community.
So we've talked around about a variety of different things. The one thing we really haven't sat down, and I'm trying to figure out if we even want to go down this route, is, what do I get for? Gabrielle, we talked about this a little bit on the post and various other things. It's like, all right, I got $1,000. What do I get for my 1,000? I got 5,000. What do I get for my 5,000? I don't know if we want to go down that route, because that seems to be a very, very different focus than, hey, look, how can we get help? How can we do something? And how can, what can we do? And it isn't just the 8 hours kind of thing. But as a company, as an organization, what recommendations can we give to them as they start to look at the agnostic vendors and suppliers, as they start to look at all the organizations? How can we help them understand what a good budget is? What actually defines a good budget? What makes up a good budget? Anybody got any thoughts on that one? Evan, Ryan, any thoughts on that one to begin with?
Yeah, that's
I always got thoughts.
It's a tough one.
Yeah, I was going to say,
it's a tough one.
So many thoughts.
Yeah, go for it.
No matter whether it's $1, 1,000, or 5, you should be able to show progress. You should be able to show value and progress. So whatever you're buying, whatever it is, whether it's consulting or firewalls or SOC service or antivirus, anti-malware, IPS ideas, I don't care what it is. If you cannot show how it is progressing your security program forward, it probably is not a good investment. And if it's moving your program forward, then it's probably a worthy investment. As far as the budgetary numbers go, we know that's flexible depending on type and size and nature of organization and tolerance for pain and downtime and recovery. If you're highly recoverable, if I can rebuild my everything in 20 minutes, do I really care if I go down? So but you have to make those at least that's how I'm approaching it is the budget is relative, but every single security dollar, you should be able to show how it progressed you forward.
I like that.
Well, and I think one of the things that we forget about in our industry is that a business is in business to make money. A business is not in business to secure information. And so my job when working with organizations is to justify my existence. How do I help the company make more money? Right? And that's called for a lot of security people to try to, well, I guess, we're protecting you from saving money. Well, maybe that's not good enough. Can I use this as a differentiator? Can I make my business more efficient? Can I streamline processes? Because I know that if complexity is the enemy of security, then simplicity must be my friend. So let's simplify things. It's easier to secure, right? So we can kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Look for those opportunities all the time. Because one of the questions that I actually love being asked, but people don't ask me enough, is how will this make me more money? I've had CEOs ask me that before. Well, that's great, Evan. I love all this security stuff you're talking about. It makes sense to me. To explain to me how this is going to make me more money.
Yeah,
well, and I think that was a lot harder to answer before COVID. I think now it's a little bit easier to answer. Security is a competitive business differentiator, hard stop. And I think more folks are aware more now than ever that I want to do business with companies that I'm not going to wind up in the newspaper for a data breach. I'm going to pick somebody that says that they do it over somebody that says they don't. So if I'm comparing apples to apples, and the only difference between these 2 companies is one of them says I got a SOC 2 Type 2 audit and I take my security seriously because we care about your data, and the other company's got goose eggs, I'm gonna give my money to the company that's at least trying. So I think that is spot on, Evan, that there is a huge opportunity right now to capitalize on 2020 going forward. We're not getting less technology in our lives. So who's doing it well? Because I want to give my money to somebody that's at least going to try to keep my information safe versus the company that's like, oh, oops, I don't know, security's tough and bad guys are bad. So here's your breach notice.
We got hit with this again. So somebody posted something on LinkedIn yesterday, day before yesterday, praising a particular office management retail store about how they were good because they put their hand up and they admitted that they got breached. And they were like, hey, this is really good. They actually came out, and I'm like, you do realize that's the third time they've been breached, don't you? And they were like, oh no. I'm like, Google is your friend in these instances. It ain't perfect, but if you Google that particular company, you can see they got their ass handed them in 2014, 2019, and again this year. Yay, congratulations. You know, and I think we also forget that we have that ability to actually sit down and go, hey, there's a question that just came in for like open source solutions for asset inventory. And while we've been talking, I've just been Googling it, literally Googling a bunch of them to see who's got a good score, who does what, you know, whether Snipe It or whether it's, you know, Asset or whether it's I Do It or which ones are good. And so, you know, and to me, it's like, hey, all this data's out there. You just got to get out. You got to look for it. You got to do your own research. You've got to. There are definitely scoring things out there. There's definitely people on forums who have gone, oh my gosh, I've tried this and it was piss poor awful. Or I've tried this and yay, I love it. I'm still using it. So I think a lot of it comes down to people actually doing some of their own research.
I want to add something that you know, Ryan said that I liked. You know, where you said maybe I'll be back in 20 minutes. You know, I can restore my system. So as a business owner, as a small business owner, I'm confused, right? I don't know what these guys are talking with me about. From my perspective, I'm just gonna, you know, pay money, and I don't know if I'm gonna get value. So it's all very vague. So anything that will make something tangible for me, for example, look, I cannot, and it's about setting expectations. You know, I cannot promise you won't be breached, okay? But if something bad happens, probably with everything that we set up, 24 hours you're back on, then I know that I bought insurance for 24-hour gap. It cost me $3,000 or $5,000 or $1,000, whatever it is. Now I understand what I'm getting. But to tell me, you know, when it's not tangible, it's very hard. So, you know, it's hard to make everything tangible, but maybe stick to those things that you know, small business owners can understand, because that's the risk. I'm going to go down for how long?
Well, and you know, it's interesting you bring that up, because that's exactly what we do, you know, over here at Security Studio. That's the whole point behind the S2 score, is to help you have a tangible thing to measure based on some semi-intangible things, right? You have these questions, you know, do you do this? Do you do this? Well, you know, that's fine. You get them answered. Maybe you need a consultant to help you get them answered. But once you have that number, you realize, okay, I invest $1, my number goes up. I didn't do something, my number went down. I have something to see that helps me realize the tangibility of the value of the investments I'm making in this risk management thing, in this, you know, risk, you know, attempt to reduce as much as possible. No elimination, obviously, but you can reduce it. You can limit how hard it hits you. And so having that tangible score, we found that people really like that, because to your point, Gabriel, a lot of this is very difficult if you don't know the ins and outs of computing and security and networking and why things are the way they are. And the reality is I would say probably 99% of small business owners, I'm not in small business to learn all this IT stuff. I'm in small business because I like to make candles, or I'm really into fixing transmissions, or whatever it is that I do with my day. I'm doing that because that's my love, that's my passion. This extra stuff, I don't sit with the power man and have him explain to me how the transformer works for how the power gets to the outlet. I just pay the bill and plug it in, and if it doesn't work, I've got a plan for that. I got a generator in the back, or I got a number I call, I get money off on my bill, or whatever that is. And I think we need to learn some lessons from the rest of the industries, especially as we continue to move towards commoditization. The reality is nirvana for me is when we're a utility. When we are as common and as simple as a utility. There is an immense amount of complexity behind the scenes for how that power gets from the station to your home. You do not need to know. It is not relevant to you. Other people worry about that, but you get to use it and use it safely, and your house doesn't burn down. So that's for me, I think part of what small business owners, need to be willing to do too. And that's why the point Evan made too about trust. Like, trust is so critical in this relationship. If I'm paying a security guard to guard the front door, if I find him asleep when I check on him, right, that's not good. So I think our industry is the same thing. You got to find somebody that you can trust that'll help walk you through this. And if you can't afford to pay a professional, that's where, again, I'm going to point you back to, there's volunteer organizations, there's colleges, there's universities, that are going to be willing to help you figure some of this out without having to be an expert in it yourself. Because I run into that too. Small business owners that, I need to completely understand this before I'm comfortable with it. And it's like, well, do you got 5 years?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's the huge part about it. Or are you willing to sit down with me for a couple of hours over a cup of tea or coffee, and I'll impart as much as I can to get you comfortable with it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, which has been a few cases.
Yeah, that perfection paralysis, right? The point isn't to be perfect. You'll never be perfect, ever. I've been doing 30 plus years. I've never seen a perfect security program. I never will. Right? The point is getting started and making progress.
Yeah.
Do that.
I think that hits it. And I think that, for me, the big takeaway on this one is, if you're going to put money into a program or anything, time, money, and effort, you have to see progress, which means you've got to start off and understand where you are, which comes back to how do I measure it? How do I do it effective? Can I go grab the security studio stuff and go, look, here's my baseline, run a spreadsheet, do the security studio, do something to get that baseline. And then, like, okay, to Gabrielle's point, let's get the awareness moving, let's get the baseline moving, let's get the assets moving, but let's do something. And then I can see it, I can measure it, and it feels good. It's no different than anything else that we do, be it training, be it weight loss, be it anything else that we do in this world. I go, look, I can see progress. I can see a little bit at a time. The pandas
well,
to
and
the
I'll add to that,
humans.
it's legally defensible. Progress is legally defensible. You were doing something, right? So as a small business owner, if nothing else that I've heard today resonates, hear this. If you do nothing, you're going to have a hard time defending that position in 2020. If you did anything, even the tiniest thing per day, that is defendable because you were trying, you were making a reasonable attempt to make effort. And I guarantee you when and if you wind up in court, that's the fact that'll make the difference, that you were trying. Nobody likes to hear in 2020 that you didn't know better. That excuse is gone. Even I didn't have money doesn't hold a lot of water in a court setting. So, really, if you do want to maintain kind of that insurability and that legal defensibility, do something that's progressing you forward every day.
So I got
make
this.
it harder for cyber criminals. Make them work for it at least. Don't be that low-hanging fruits.
Right. Carol, seriously, make it a little bit hard to get robbed.
Yeah, exactly. Carol just asked a question to which I'm actually going to post a public one. Businesses already held account for data breaches and notifications quite late. What impetus is there for a business to budget for security if the cost outweighs the risk of the budget? To me, it's a simple one. Survival. 60%, if memory serves me right, 60% of small to medium businesses that experience a breach don't last. Is it 12 months or another 6 months? Six months. Yeah.
Well, maybe 6. Yeah.
60% don't last 6 months after being breached. So for me, your impetus for actually doing something is your very survival. Now, what's the probability of you being breached versus the probability of the computer going down versus the probability of just keeping on going as you've been going for the last 20 years? You know what? You might be one of the lucky ones. Good luck on you. Same with smoking. You know what? You stand a chance of surviving. You stand a chance of not surviving. Pick your odds. Go with it. Kind of simple as that, really. Make your choice. End of discussion. I really don't, at that point, if you want help, we're here to help, definitely. All right, last comment, because that's how I look at it, to be honest. We have hit the top of the hour. So final comments. Gabrielle, I'm gonna go to you first for final comments.
Yeah, I just hope that we make some small steps today toward that vision where less businesses get scammed and less people get scammed. It was really an interesting discussion. some great things that I also learned today. So I really enjoyed this discussion with you guys.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, Evan, sir, what you got?
That's two things. Find a friend. Find a friend in our industry that you trust, that you can call when things go wrong, that you can call for advice. There are some pretty friendly people out here, but a friend that won't sell you something, so that you're not kind of just confused and swimming all the time. And then the second thing is just get started. And if you don't know where to get started, start with your asset inventory.
Nice. Ryan, what you got, sir?
Yeah, so a little bit of what everybody said, but basically, do something. I'm going to reinforce the asset inventory. If you were to only do two things, it's map your assets and do a risk assessment. Know what your actual risk and exposure is, so you can be thoughtful about what you're going to tackle first. Otherwise, it's just going to seem like it's this daunting, oh my God, I've tens of thousands of vulnerabilities. Well, no, not really. It's two that exist on a lot of machines. So do that inventory. I agree with Evan. Find a friend. Hit the Google, right? Hit the Twitter. There's lots of good resources out there, but please do something so that you can start your journey. It doesn't have to be a lot. You could do just the tiniest bit, but if every day you chip away at this, chip away at the granite, eventually you'll have a countertop.
I'm so with you on the one.
Right? You want to change a habit, you start with small things and eventually build up. So whatever you do, just start doing something.
All right.
Thank you for inviting us, Gabriel and Chris.
Yeah,
very
awesome.
much for having you guys. Yeah, much appreciated, guys. Ryan, Evan, Gabriel, as always, thank you very much. And thank you to everybody that hung out with us and stayed with us. And thanks for the amazing questions. And we look forward to doing another one of these again. Ryan, good luck with the RV. Travel safe. And hopefully I see you in the flesh in the next 48, 72, whatever. Worst case
Something like
scenario,
that.
I'm going to bring the F550 up and I'm just going to drag your sorry ass down. Simple as that, really. All right.
I love it.
Everybody take care.
All right, guys.
Stay safe, stay healthy, all those good things.